If you can't make a decision, pick a different industry. That's the first thing. Second thing is learn how to really accept the imperfections in a garment or in creating anything, because in that there are surprises. And it might and oftentimes will come out better than if you try to force it. Here we are.
Robbie, awesome, man. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Grateful to be here, Spence.
Yeah, we got Robbie McInerny in the house, and thanks so much. One of the things I love, I'm so excited to have you on. I think you're one of the people that I definitely respect in all facets of my life. And, to use the term, I think you're probably the only person in my life that I know that to use the term tastemaker. And, I know I've heard you use that term about other older people who you respect. But I respect what you're doing a ton. And I'm super pumped to have you on. I look at you like, a brother, and we've been through a lot together, known each other for a long time. So excited to have you on for the inaugural episode. It's gonna be awesome.
I'm grateful. It's an honor.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned earlier, I've looked up to you my whole life, and we've shared some really incredible years together. You mentored me when I was a freshman at Laguna on the baseball team, and I just recognized that you're kind of my guy for a long time. So know that. And now it's been special in our adult years to really develop a deeper relationship around work, family, life, and the whole thing. So
totally. We've had some great times all the way from high school. And then I was living in San Francisco for a while you were going to Cal.
Yep.
And had you out and, had some fun dinners and times out there. That was a good time.
We balance work and play very well.
We do.
Together.
We do. We've had some good times. We've had, I agree. I've loved the relationship that we've formed. I'm super happy and it's really special to me. And, you were, there, we've been through a lot together, high school, college, when I was living in SF, you were at Cal, then all the way, you get out of school and, we had some fun times at Outside Lands
Jack
and then,
Pills.
Jack Pills. And then, you came to my wedding and, met my son and all that stuff. So it's really special. So more stuff to come, but,
Absolutely.
It's going to be great. But what we're here to talk about today, obviously, is I want to talk about you, and I want to talk about Willbo, your clothing brand and your business, and excited to dive into that. I want to, I thought I'd break this up into 3 sections. Really, first section is let's talk about your story, kind of zero to hero, background, where what brought you to where you are today, and kind of the trials, tribulations, and, risks you took along the way to get to where you are now with your brand and your business. And then let's talk about in the middle, I want to talk about like where you are right now and how you view your business today, the risks that you are running today, the, opportunities you feel like you have, going on right now. And then kind of the third section, let's talk about, what you're doing to kind of now to kind of in thinking about into the future, opportunities, but also like from my perspective, I want to know what are you doing to kind of safeguard your venture? There's a lot that goes into that, whether it be market pressures or obviously I'm an insurance guy. So talking about like, do you add in some insurances, and as you continue to grow, what are things you're thinking about? I think the listeners will get a lot of value out of that, kind of that arc. So that's kind of our arc. So
sounds good to me.
Yeah. With that, let's talk about, first section here. Like, give us your story, what's brought you to where you are today, and kind of tell us, kind of like I said, the risks, you've kind of overcome and the trials, tribulations, all the stuff. I want to hear it all.
Killer. Well, as you alluded to, I grew up in Laguna Beach to 2 entrepreneurial parents that have built a career in the action sports industry. And so my earliest memories are watching my parents build brands and, joining them at trade shows and walking the trade show floors, watching them, build brands from scratch to the point where we have, IKEA pull out, warehouse management systems and the whole thing. And then it just kind of goes from there. So with that as kind of an early age background, I recognized like, that's something interesting. Maybe down the road, that's something I'll pursue. Fast forward, I alongside my brother, attend all the public schools in Laguna. We start playing sports because my dad definitely pushed sports on us from an early age. He recognized the value that it would provide us and also the opportunities that it would provide us as well in terms of getting to our dream schools. So sports was very much the backbone of our childhood at points to a fault, but it was the foundation in which we learned how to be a productive member of society in many ways. But, after attending Laguna Beach High School alongside you, thanks for being my captain as a freshman when I came in.
Shout out Breakers. Well,
Shout out
artists
Breakers.
now, I guess.
I know. I still artists, breakers, whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
But was lucky enough to continue to, pursue sports at college. I went to Cal Berkeley and, initially went for baseball, but then had an opportunity to walk on the football team. And so decided to do that as well. And it was the best 4 years of my life. I know it's cliche to say, but, above and beyond attending an incredible school and learning, valuable information. I studied history of all things, which was random, but I definitely, resonated with history and the storytelling aspect of it and, it providing perspective on not only where we've been, but where we're going. I was able to make incredible friendships and had experiences that are lifelong. And so, that really was an incredible experience in my life that really informed what I wanted to do in the future. I knew coming out of college that I was most likely not going to pursue a corporate job. I didn't think I could really be in an office. And so actually, interestingly enough, I got done with football and baseball my junior year of college and had an opportunity to start, getting my toes wet in the entertainment industry and film, playing off of my interest in storytelling and art and community and just people. So that's really where I got my start, is in entertainment and film. So for a couple, 3 years, I worked, in production. I worked under directors. I actually did stunt work and did some acting. And that was the foundation coming out of college.
So real quick, I want to get to the stunt work because I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
That's awesome. How was it in college being a two-sport athlete? I mean, there's not many people that do two sports, so I'm just curious, like, what that looked like for you, and how that shaped you. You also had like the baseball guys and the football guys. How was that for you?
It was unbelievable. I mean, Cal alone is hard enough academically, and then you add a sport or two in the mix, and it made a man out of me, without a doubt. My first 6 months at Cal, I called my dad. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. This is insane.
This is nuts.
For the first 6 months, I didn't tell our football team that I was playing baseball as well. So I was doing double days for 6 months straight, every day.
Oh boy! So you go work out with the football team in the morning, and then you baseball in the afternoon.
So when I came in, we were in season for football. So we'd have afternoon practices. We'd have mixed days where we'd do 6 a.m. workouts. But we were preseason baseball, so we'd do 6 a.m. trainings and runs and lifts and the whole thing. So it was a secret for a little bit. And one of my close buddies, Jared Goff, actually, who's now the QB for the Lions, his dad and his background is baseball. His dad played baseball at Cal just after my dad, actually. And he came up to me one day and he goes, "You playing baseball?" I'm like, "Oh, shit." Like, cat's out of the bag. He's like, "Dude, that's dope." I'm like, sick. If we got like the QB,
you got the guy
has my backing, I can tell some people.
Yeah.
But it was an incredible experience. And like I said, it definitely made a man out of me. I really learned how to manage time. I really learned how to just put my head down and grind. And I never had the expectation to be a star at Cal on the football field or on the baseball field. My greatest intention was to be a team guy and to be a clubhouse guy. And that was kind of what I always knew. If I was going to play two sports, it'd be hard enough, to really perform at the level that I wanted to. But what I connected with most was the camaraderie of the guys in the clubhouse, the value of putting in work together, in the weight room, on a field training, or at practice. And so that was really kind of the role that I played at Cal. I rode a lot of pine in both sports, right? So you take that.
The community, though, that's what it's all about.
It was yeah, and holding each other accountable,
Yeah.
And so I think that was my role at Cal, alongside also, leading by example in terms of how I worked and how I carried myself. And so, like I said, it definitely made a man out of me, but it also taught me the importance of leadership and how to carry myself if you're not one that's on the field every day, right? So on the sideline, in the locker room, in weights and training. It was a very valuable time for me in my life, and I just learned some important lessons in that experience.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome, man. I mean, good for you.
Thank you.
I don't know if I could have done a 2-sport, but that's really cool. JG comes up. It's like,
Yeah, it was
yeah,
clutch.
that's awesome, man. And that's cool. I know you guys have formed a good friendship, and
It's been really cool.
Maybe that was the spark, at the time. It was like,
Totally.
he's like, this guy is nuts, but I like it.
Totally.
You're crazy, man, but I like you.
Fully. And then, we found, a couple guys, found out that I was also playing baseball, backup quarterback, Zach Klein. And he's like, wait, you think we can go out on the football field and I'm like, sure. He's like, you think you can help me maybe walk on the baseball team? I want to pitch. And this kid, Zach Klein, was wild. He had a cannon for an arm. And so I kid you not, we go out on the football field and bring out a couple gloves. And he's 60 feet away, and he is hurling the ball at me.
Oh my God.
Spiking balls. And I have nothing but a glove on.
You're like,
this is insane.
Jesus.
And so then it just became this thing. But yeah, it was really, really fun.
That's awesome. All right. So you two teams or 2 sport athlete, then junior year, you get into film. And that was like an internship, apprenticeship. Tell us about that. And then lead me up into the stunt work. Cause I didn't know you did stunt work. You actually yourself were doing stunt work.
Absolutely.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's insane.
This was great as well. So, I after sports recognized that I, for many years, was suppressing my creativity. I knew that I loved to create. I loved art. I loved storytelling. It's kind of in my Irish blood and, lineage of family members that have pursued a similar career and path. So I knew that was kind of a inkling I had that I wanted to at least explore. So, I stopped playing sports my junior year, and I actually joined a professional film fraternity at Cal. So people are like, were you in a fraternity at Cal? I'm like, yeah, but it was kind of a nerdy one. Wow. So it was a professional film fraternity where we learned essentially all of the things that go into producing and making a film. And we'd make short films at Cal and the whole thing. But one of my dad's closest friends, Mark Kuber, had reached out to me and said, hey, you're an athlete. Would you ever be interested in doing some stunt work? I'm like, are you kidding me? Yeah, it sounds awesome. What does that mean? He goes, just trust me. So
don't ask, just trust.
Don't ask, just trust. So senior year, I'm flying down to LA to go into a casting room and, read lines and do this, that, and the other. And I'm like, this is kind of wild. You walk into a room and there's, 5 people, like director, producers, casting agents, the whole thing. And you just have to essentially read lines in front of 5 people. And they're like, cool, thanks. Have a good one. You're like, I don't know if I did well. I don't know if I did bad.
Straight up entourage stuff, Johnny Drama. Just,
totally.
We'll call you back if you you're like, all right.
Totally.
Call you back if we want you.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was really cool. And then I was like, I don't know. I think that went well. Cool. Week later, I get a call, and Cooper goes, hey, you're in. You're going to be one of the, stunt performers on this new series for TNT called Animal Kingdom. I'm like, sweet. He goes, we're shooting the pilot in September. I'm like, okay. I don't know what that means, but let's run it. So my senior year comes around, and I fly down to Orange County, sleep with my parents, and the call time for this show is like 5:30, 6 a.m. out of the Dana Point Harbor, right at that little marine center.
Yeah.
And we take a chartered boat out with about 30 guys, and we go to San Onofre, and we surf for 10 hours. And it was incredible.
Wow.
And so we're essentially doing the pilot episode for this show, Animal Kingdom, where we're surfing and doubling guys and shooting scenes. And so this is the episode essentially that they're making to hopefully get it lit and approved by TNT. Yeah. Essentially, that's what a pilot is.
To see if they like it, there's interest. Yep. Pilots, they do them all the time, and then only 10% of them actually make it.
Exactly.
And shout out, Animal Kingdom's still going, right? It's still like a.
It is.
It's still like a pretty big show.
It's wild.
TNT. It's like one of their biggest shows. So
yeah,
that's awesome.
So it was really cool, really great experience, and we surfed for 10 hours. I couldn't lift my arms after that, but
must have been pruny.
It was pretty. I see a buddy in Newport who was on that first pilot episode and a number of episodes after. This kid Jeff, and we still talk about it. But it was an amazing experience. You're alongside people that are in the action sports space. They love adventure. They love kind of this craze of whether it's surfing or skateboarding or fighting, and it was just it was an intoxicating environment because you were just playing, but also creating and telling stories. So it was like, wow, there's something there that is really, really fun. Plus, you show up and surf for a day and I'm like, wait, we made how much money today? It's like,
You're a
what?
senior in college. You're
like, this is epic.
Made like $500, $1,000, whatever it is,
Yeah, we shot, I think, double OT, maybe even three times overtime. And it was a great first day. And then after that, the
you're hooked.
First season comes out, and I shot, I think, 3 episodes where I was doubling some of the lead actors and then doing some skate scenes in Oceanside. And it was an incredible experience. And I recognized that film was definitely a calling for me to pursue kind of that interest in storytelling and the creative and artistic space. But after, a couple years, I actually recognized that my love and interest for telling stories and art and film can actually be parlayed with my desire to build a lifestyle-oriented and community-centric brand that could combine both. So that's in many ways where kind of the first makings of what would ultimately become Willbo came from. So it parlayed off of film.
Yeah, I was actually going to hit on that. It's like I can see where the hook came from for you.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about so much in today's society. Where's the hook?
Where's the hook?
That was your hook,
Mm-hmm.
it seems like, which is awesome. So I don't know if I've ever told you this, by the way, but I wanted to be a cinematographer when I was young.
You did.
So I guess I told you that last time I saw you.
I love, which is you as a
film was,
4-year-old, like, Mom, like, I want to be a cinematographer. She's like, that's a big word, Spenny.
I don't know if you remember this, but I had a film called Grom in the Palm that we had premiered downtown, and it was like we were like 11,
Grom
10 or
in the
11.
Palm.
Grom in the Palm. I'll show it to you sometimes. It's terrible, but
can't-
it's so bad.
I can't wait.
It has like Red Hot Chili Peppers. Like the whole theater was packed. You got 12-year-olds in there. And seeing there. It was just like us filming, me and Alex Groman just filming the like friends surfing at Thalia, the Brooks to Thalia Street.
It's killer.
Like strip, and then we just like put their names on there. It's like early days of iMovie and stuff. I loved
love it. It's awesome.
And then we went to UCLA camp and made shorts and stuff. It was fun.
Really cool.
I love film too, that creative aspect and photography and everything. And I definitely look up to you because your stuff is incredible. It's
Thank you.
amazing. It's really amazing.
Really appreciate it.
But yeah, so that hook, so that's where you got hooked on, hey, wow, like I can do this storytelling, I can do this film, which I love. I'm playing, it's exciting, it's fun, I can make something. That's really where the journey started, it sounds like, for you. And then also, like you said, you had two parents have been in the action sports industry,
Yep.
so like the idea just starts like forming. I know a little bit about it because obviously we're pals.
Yep.
But let's talk about like the first iteration of it, right? I remember you telling me, you had this first iteration of it, some ideas there around some like cameras and drop kind of, how do you create this like online community? At the time, obviously, like San Francisco was in full swing. There's like you went to Cal. You have like you're an arm's distance from the Bay. You're in the Bay. Arm's distance from the city. Tech hub. It was San Francisco was pumping. It's still the tech hub, but like at the time, it was like really really pumping. So, tell us about kind of the first iterations of what you like. I guess at this point you're kind of like graduating college.
Yep. So I graduated in 2017.
2017, you're thinking about, okay, I'm starting to formulate this, this brand, and tell us about kind of like how up until the first iterations, and then
there were a few iterations now that I think about it. Some that were my choice, and others that were not. About 3 iterations, but parlaying off of the experience in film, and then recognizing that I'd love to parlay the interest I have in building community, and also really inspiring a lifestyle around art, sport, culture, and adventure. That was kind of the makings and foundation of me to pursue what ultimately became a brand called Journeau. And what I'd recognized alongside kind of my interest in film internally and storytelling was externally that we were living in a time, and still are in many ways, where we're more connected than ever, yet more disconnected. Right. And so authentic connection and meaningful relationships and friendships was becoming more and more difficult to find, right? Social media really provides this platform that in many ways is great. It's a great tool, but very impersonal at the end of the day, where I wanted to find a way that we could foster more meaningful connection, both digitally and physically, while parlaying off of, inspiring storytelling that would connect us deeper to not only each other, but also our surroundings. So that was really, in many ways, the early kind of inspiration of how can we formulate something that, leverages the value and the tools that are this digital space, but also bring people together in a meaningful way physically. And so we decided to launch a brand called Journeau, which attempted to do just that, where we would create essentially a private members club that would foster meaningful relationships digitally by way of an app or a platform with storytelling, with products, with in-app conversations. And it was a very loose idea, but the overall intention was, how can we create an intentional platform that, again, fosters meaningful connection both digitally and physically? We'd love to have, meaningful events around these, different themes, whether it's in the artistic space, around sport, culture, history, entertainment, and education. And that's essentially what we wanted to do. It's a very loose idea. We knew that product was going to be a souvenir of that experience, right? Like a membership. You go to Soho House or you go to the Mauna Kea with your family and you pick up a souvenir. So
Sure.
we really treated product as almost like a souvenir to that larger collective experience. That'll come in later. But a couple of things happened. One, after spending 18 months on this project, we launched it, and a week later, COVID hit. And so our first year, we had recognized that we were going to treat it as a beta model. Let's really work out the kinks. Let's start to put together the makings of what can ultimately become, and host physical events to bring this community together and execute on our vision to foster meaningful connection, and let it just go from there, right? If we build something that is magic and people develop a deep connection to and with each other, we can really build something special. So it was very loose. But COVID hit, which essentially eliminated our opportunities to be able to host physical events that year. And then a month after launch, actually, after doing everything right, going through our attorneys and going through the USPTO and getting approved for trademarks, we got hit with a cease and desist against our brand name, which we made up and spent months making up, right?
Crafting and
how can we mitigate our
Yeah.
risk and our liability here by finding a brand name that will be okay from socials and our website, and it's cleared in the necessary classes, right, through the USPTO, being 35, which is retail, 25, which is apparel, and then 18, which is accessories, and then I think it was 16 for essentially a digital business. I forget what the number was, but we got hit with a cease and desist, and I didn't know what that meant at the time, but essentially it put a pause on everything that we could do. It was from a brand that is a large retailer in the footwear space, actually, which is ironic because my dad has a footwear company.
That's so ironic.
And they came after us under the pretense that our name was potentially confusing to their consumers. And I had three options. Option one was to fight them, which would cost our business at least $50K with no guarantee on winning.
And you hadn't even started a business. You're
No,
like, this cost me $50K.
There was no business yet.
Yeah, so
right?
there's kind of I want to talk a little bit about what you said, but there's kind of the risk reward there from like a financial.
Yep.
But keep going. What else?
Option two was to ask to speak to their principals and see if you can work out an agreement. Option three was to say nothing and let it fizzle out and see if they drop it. I took option two. I said, hey, I'd love to speak to your principals out of Atlanta. Let's see if we can work out an agreement. Here's our long-term business vision. We can work out an agreement where we will not be in any retailers. We will not be in any malls within, however many miles of a distance from your locations. They basically said, take a hike. Said, no, screw off. Right? They had a pretty big legal team.
We're the big guys.
Yep.
We're Goliath. You're David.
So option
See you later.
nailed it. Option three was to wait for them to provide them with their terms. And they smoked me out basically in the sense that not only did they wait 3 months to file on the last day what their terms were, they filed an extension for 2 months. So for 5 months, I was sitting on my hands all the while COVID's going on. And I'm living with my parents to save money to start a business. Pretty tough time.
Oh, man.
Right.
And you're like, I want to get this business going. I have all these ideas.
Yep.
And, yeah, that's tough.
So it's tough. But in that experience, it was the most important part of the journey because I was essentially presented with a challenge and also presented with an opportunity to either shift course and pick something new or double down. And I chose the latter. So I wanted to figure out a way that we could essentially hit on the same vision and execute on our values and our ethos in terms of what we were trying to create, just in a new way. And so initially, actually, we have a mutual friend in the Firestone family. Initially, I actually went down the path of potentially starting a beer company. I was going to introduce a session IPA that really captured the California lifestyle and inspired this life around, field, court, water, trail, the oceans, or I guess, along the coast, in the valleys, in the mountains, in the deserts, this kind of really all-encompassing action sports-oriented lifestyle. I figured a beer or a beverage is a great product that truly represents celebration and camaraderie, right? After a surf, right? Cracking a beer with buddies, it's like this celebratory and ritualistic experience where you can share, right? And stories come from that. So that was an initial kind of iteration, and I put together a full business plan. I met with Adam Firestone, who started 805, and then my dad's buddy, who also started Kona Brewing Company, both of which told me, love the idea, love the position, branding is killer, love the marketing idea and initiatives, but let us tell you a little bit about the alcohol space and the beverage space. Don't even fucking try. It's madness. So I said,
It's just madness.
What do you mean? And so they said, what you and your family know so well is the lifestyle space, is action sports. Stay the course, focus your efforts there. We're not telling you your business plan is faulty or bad in any way. We'd love to join you in this, but stay the course. And so Adam Firestone of 805 was actually the last meeting that I had with my dad, where I said, cool, I think he's absolutely right. And so what had happened from there was I recognized that we had a lot of great elements in place, right? I was also able to develop some incredible learnings through trial and error and through hard times that informed a stronger business model and also inspired me to double down on myself, where instead of relying on others to either build the website, do the graphic design, formulate marketing plans and initiatives, I now needed to invest in myself. So I looked at myself and I essentially just said, I'm going to become a savage this year. I'm going to learn every aspect of the business. And so it parlayed off of some really difficult times, about 2 years of me getting my ass kicked. And that 2-year period was the most important and transformative experience in the now adult and business space that I needed. Because it forced me to ask myself the question, do I want to do this? Am I willing to sacrifice everything? Am I willing to invest in myself and, give up a balanced lifestyle to build something that I believe in?
Yeah.
And that's what I did.
That's what this podcast is predicated on, right? Am I willing to take the risk, right? There's a lot of people that, it sounds like you had a lot of really good people around you. You have your parents, obviously, who, they took the risk. So maybe there's like a little bit of, hey, I've seen it. It can work, obviously. But it's all about, you got to take smart risks that you believe in. And, you obviously did that. And so, kudos to you, and so, but that was hard, right? Like, what was your thinking at that point, right? And you probably have buddies, it's COVID, so kind of interesting, but you have buddies who maybe they're gone into real estate or, they're making money, at that point it was like surplus bonanza, government's handing out money and
totally
people were, what's your thought process of it's COVID, I could do that track, I'm sure, or hey, should I take the risk and do it? What was kind of you're just screw it. Like you said, I'm going to become a savage. Just what's going through your mind at that point?
Yeah, like I said, it was just a very pivotal moment for me to invest in myself and really invest in the learnings that were needed to be able to now kind of further nurture this calling. And so, with graphic design, dove in head first. And with the Journaux project, I have to mention this because this was very important. There were a couple guys that we decided to work with that were friends with my dad, veterans in the space, legends in the space that have built a career around their graphic design and creative and artistic direction in the publishing space. So books, a lot of the timeless California surf or climbing books that you see are done by this group of guys. Tom Adler is his name, and Evan Bacquez, who my dad and his buddies grew up with and worked at Quicksilver with and the whole thing. And so Tom was top of our list. The reason why I bring up Tom is because through osmosis and through watching what they had created for Journaux, I learned the importance of timeless design and going about design and branding in a way that feels refreshing. And so through watching, I recognized I can apply that myself. I just need to learn the tools. And so that was step one, was for me to dive in and learn, graphic design with Illustrator, with Photoshop. I already had a film and photography background, so I knew that was another skill I could add to the mix. And then the third element was, okay, now we need to learn how to make products domestically here in LA. And aside from my parents being in the action sports industry, they have no formal background or experience at all in manufacturing products, which is a whole new ballgame. So that was another element where I said, I need to learn that, and I'm going to learn it very well. And I know I'm going to get my ass kicked again. Basically taking blows to the face for 4 years, but it was the risk that was needed to be able to realize this ultimate dream. And we'll get to now what the brand is today. But these early elements were very important for now where we are, because if the basis of this conversation is around risk, there were risks that we took on a macro and a micro scale, right? Every day, long-term visionary thinking stuff, right? Where are we going and what do we want to build? Micro, how do we execute on that vision today and this week and this month and this quarter to get there long-term? It's a risk every time, right? And so that was in many ways the early makings of now where we are today. And I think we kind of summarized it through growing up in Laguna, growing up to entrepreneurial parents, going to college, playing 2 sports, tapping in and getting my feet wet in the film and entertainment industry, pursuing a business that failed, and doubling down on myself and this vision, reimagining it, and thinking about how we can reintroduce it in a way that is digestible and is in some ways a more mitigated approach to what we can build, right? Given the circumstances around COVID, right? No events and experiences, no physical gathering, factories are shut down in LA. So how can we mitigate while still trying to execute on the long-term vision?
Absolutely. And something like what I hear of that is, I think, a key thing, and I want anyone who's listening, is you have to take the risk, and you took the risk by starting the business, number one. And, there's on the other side of that, there's alternatives you could have done, but you're like, I feel this calling. And then you failed, technically,
Absolutely.
It failed. And one of the things I always try to tell people, and I think you probably feel the same way, is like, you either win or you learn. You don't lose. I think a lot of people would have just taken that first risk. They get shut down and they're just like, oh man, this is it. I'm done. It's just, I can't do it, whatever.
Nailed
so
it. In sports too, we always say no losses, only lessons. Right?
Totally.
It's the same thing.
Same
no
thing.
wins, only, learnings.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same thing. So yeah, that's absolutely right. And that not only happens on a grand scale if you start a business and you fail, but it also happens on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
No losses, only lessons.
No, totally.
What can we take away from today in whatever kind of areas that we were able to focus on? And how can we be better tomorrow? It's vital.
Absolutely. And, you also, I think another important thing is that I also hear is you failed early.
Mm-hmm.
You took the risk. You failed early. Another thing I talk about a lot, but and again, I think you probably are on this ethos as well, is like we're young,
Yeah.
right? You know, relatively speaking, you're not taking the same risks. You would potentially take this at 60 years old to start this brand. Maybe you would, depending like on your situation, but like, you know, you're just coming out of college, like fail early, fail fast.
Yeah.
And that will then, like you perfectly just laid out, that was the basis and that was your foundation of your house to then now build Willbo, you know, and reimagine it. And I give you a ton of credit because, man, you're trying to build a business that's largely revolving around physical events and physical connection, and especially a product that you have to physically feel that obviously you can ship over the internet to people, but you're like, that's not exactly the ethos that I'm like trying to build around this brand. And like you did it through like the hardest time, frankly. So I give you so much credit, man.
Thank
like
you.
that is like, it was a hard place to start, but I think that, you know, like I said, you failed early, you failed fast, and that then led you to where you are today. So I think it's a good segue of like, tell us, you know, where you are today with Willbo. A thing I also thinking, you know, tell us about the brand, but also want to think about how do you think about the risks you run today in Willbo? Obviously, tell us about the opportunities that you think, oh, we got these great opportunities, but also tell us about, you know, I think it's kind of the unsaid thing with entrepreneurship. It's kind of the unspoken, you know, conversation that people don't have, but it's something that business owners and entrepreneurs like yourself think about every day, right?
Totally.
What are the risks I run? People, operationally, manufacturing, you know, and so tell us about obviously the brand. And I think everyone love to hear about the brand and how you got it to where you are today, but then tell us about how you also view that in your business now.
Awesome.
And, you know, what things that you're, you know, just your thoughts on it and what you're thinking and how you know, how you, maybe you put things in place to help you with that, to kind of mitigate those risks. But I'm excited to hear, you know, more about Willbo.
Yeah. So parlaying again off, I've used that word a few times, but truly speaking, parlaying off of, you know, early learnings and early risks in my 20s. I'm still 29, so I'm in my late 20s.
Hey, you're almost joining the 30 club. Let's go.
Almost in June. I know we're almost there. But really kind of playing off of the experiences and the failures that were had in my early 20s, what was, you know, crucial for us, or for me in particular, was to recognize how we can reimagine the intention of what the first business was seeking to achieve and present it in a way that was digestible for people and easy to connect with, right? And so we essentially flipped the Journeau business model on its head, where we said, instead of treating products as a souvenir to a larger collective experience, we're going to treat product as a conduit to the experience that will be built out on the back end, right? And so in non-traditional fashion, as a now apparel brand or lifestyle apparel brand, I recognize that let's build beautiful product here domestically that we can present, that ties to stories, that connect us to place and our, you know, pursuits, if you will, whether it's in the coast or along the coast, in the valleys, in the mountains, in the deserts. It could be surfing, it could be sailing, it could be golf and tennis in the desert. It could be hiking and fly fishing in the mountains. It could be climbing in Yosemite Valley. All of these interests that our generation shares were not really being treated from an apparel, let's see, from a lifestyle apparel brand lens. And so we recognize, like I said, that let's build beautiful product here domestically in LA that tells stories, that connects us to place and in the process to each other. And so we flipped kind of the idea on its head, where people will resonate with the product and they will speak on the product. They will join us physically in store for events and experiences. And little do they know, what's being built on the back end is what Journeau sought to, you know, achieve all along, where the longer term vision is to build out a series of physical clubhouses where our community can gather and can, you know, ultimately support their pursuits and interests, whether it be, like I said, surfing or sailing, climbing, golfing, tennis. So it really is very community centric, even though people were like, oh yeah, it's an apparel brand, right? I'm like, good, right? Let's take this in pieces. Because if I say we're an apparel brand and we're also, a content and marketing firm, we do events and experiences, we're a social club, people are like, whoa, 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 too much, right? And so our objective and our goal out the gate was, yes, we're a lifestyle apparel brand that makes product that captures and celebrates, this lifestyle in the West, and really, celebrates the magic and wonder of what makes this place so special. Great, that's what we are. But the long-term vision is more dynamic.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the clubhouse, because I know that was kind of a risk that you guys took. And I remember you getting it up and going. And, so there's for those listening, there's, Willbo has their first clubhouse in Laguna Beach where we grew up.
Yep.
And, let's talk about that kind of decision, right? You start making some apparel, and pretty soon after, right? It was pretty quickly after that you're like, whoa, kind of stumble onto this space in Laguna. This could be a really good fit. But there is some kind of risk reward there, right?
Yeah.
You're like taking on a lease, and how did you guys think about that from like a risk reward perspective?
Yep.
Of like, okay, this could be our flagship kind of
Location.
And like, what was the kind of thinking behind that, and what was kind of the intention behind that?
We knew going in that we wanted to present an alternative experience where it was very much a physical touch point, whether it be through the product or the pop-ups or the events and experiences that we would host. And so we knew that we weren't going to go the traditional path of an apparel or clothing brand where we'd seek wholesales or wholesalers and key doors to push products. That wasn't our model. Not only could we afford it because manufacturing, apparel domestically is very expensive, but to hit on the minimums or the margins that were needed to support a wholesale strategy, we couldn't do it, right? We were mitigating inventory, right,
Totally.
in that process.
And sorry to jump in here, but what are the risks of going wholesale or going like online as a brand?
Yep.
I think people would like to hear about that.
Totally. I'll get into that in one sec. I'll answer the clubhouse thing first, but with the clubhouse kind of presenting itself as an opportunity, my dad was driving home one day and there was a big red sign on a location down the street from us, and we're about 5 months into the business, and he goes, "Hey, I just peeked into this cool little spot down the street, and it could be a cool little location for a pop-up." And I go, "Okay. I'm absolutely not ready for that, but let's go check it out."
5 months in,
5 months in.
probably just getting your first line
my
out.
Gosh. Yes, exactly. But we knew that physical touch point was an integral part of the experience and what would resonate with our community and consumers. And so, initially being the space that we now have full-time in Laguna was a 2 or 3 month pop-up over the holidays. And that was it. That was all it was intended to be. Let's, introduce a pop-up, short-term, host some events and experiences, get people in here to really touch and feel touch and experience the products, and then just soak in the energy. And we can really communicate our message effectively that way. Here we are, 2.5 years later, and have been in the space full-time, and it's been incredible.
Absolutely. And I like what you said there. It's like, hey, I think for, people listening, sometimes it's like, oh my God, this is crazy commitment.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you guys are like, let's just like take it, pop up, see if they're interested. And, you're kind of essentially, again, because we're talking about risk here, you're kind of mitigating your risk a little bit, just being like, hey, we'll do it something like temporarily, take it one step at a time,
Yep.
Not being like, hey, I'm going to dive into this thing. Like we're signing a 5-year commercial lease.
Totally.
Like, oh my God. Like, it's just like, hey, like, oh, we'll do it, see what happens. And it was, like you said, it's a little piggyback off
awesome.
what you guys are working on.
And I have to say, Eric Bostwick, who actually was at Laguna with you, has been such a star for us. He really allowed us to work into this lease long term. We started as, a 2 or 3 month pop-up. Then we were able to go month to month. And then we were able to go, 1+1 in terms of, a year and option for another year lease. And he's just been so great. We were able to renovate the space, to kind of give it a facelift, if you will. And
He'd probably love that. Yeah.
He probably love that. Yeah, absolutely.
Shout out Eric. He's my in-laws' neighbors. Literally, they right next door.
There you go. Love it. So I just mention Eric.
I see him all the time.
Eric's the best. But I want to now answer your question about, what does that look like in terms of wholesale versus retail, right?
Yeah.
As we've seen, launching a direct consumer business can be great because you're baking in, margins, right? It's a vertical approach. And so not only is it a direct line of communication to your consumers, but you can also manage inventory and also, achieve better margins to a degree, unless you have this huge capital output of a marketing budget, right? Where then it becomes apples to apples. And that's what we're seeing now. We can get into that in a little bit. And you're seeing a lot of brands over the last 6 months pull back from their digital ad spend because the returns are not there anymore, right? You have ad blockers and you have this shift in a digital landscape where it actually doesn't make sense. So it's the pendulum, right? You see it all the time in business. It's
Sure.
the pendulum right now. But for us and why we decided to go the path that we did, there's no one right way, right? So you can go about it two ways. In our space, being apparel and managing inventory, right? If we go in and we make a PO for a certain style and we're doing 100 units, great, here's your cost. If you're doing 1,000 units, right, it's a sliding scale. Your now unit cost is X as opposed to Y. So if you're doing larger volume, obviously your cost is better. However, there's an important piece there in terms of balance. The death of most apparel brands is in excess inventory, right? You're carrying too much cash and
Totally.
you don't have a way to off-put that cash.
Dead cash that you've already, spent stuff on. I'm
Totally.
sure if anyone listening is, had a business, and I used to actually work for a clothing business, and that was the death of the business.
Yeah.
100%.
Because you're carrying raw goods in fabric. You're carrying, finished goods in, a polo or in a jacket. And if it product doesn't get better, it's not wine, right? It doesn't age well. It just doesn't. If
It
it's
doesn't. Willbo product does though.
That's what we try.
Exactly.
Right?
This is my fine wine. It's my fine wine
Gets
polo.
better. Gets better with age. Our thing is, sorry.
Here, you want some? Here.
There you go. Look at that thing.
It's okay. We play baseball together.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Sheesh, I haven't had one of those in a while. Our thing is when I'm designing and manufacturing a given product, I always visualize that product ultimately being passed down from the consumer to someone they love. So, when Ford's of age, I hope that he can wear that polo. And he goes into your closet and goes, "This thing's sick, Dad." You go, "It's yours." That's always the intention. Now back to, what you brought up, and it's an important element in this space, being managing inventory. For us, launching, in a vertical channel, being merely direct consumer by way of our Shopify e-commerce store out the gate, we knew that we could hit on margins that were needed for, a direct consumer approach, while also managing inventory in the sense that we're not going to be carrying a large sum of inventory and we can turn on product quickly, right? Instead of a 4-month lead time, we have a 4-week lead time, right? Granted, it's more expensive, but that was an assessment of our risk, knowing damn well that most brands in this space die by way of suicide, right? Internally, because of mismanagement of cash flow, mismanagement of buys on a given season, going too deep or going too, little. It's like, oh wow, we missed it. And then the thing though that, you see a lot of brands do, which does help, and was actually something here in the last couple months that we explored as an option. You can get, pre-bookings, right? So if you go out to 15 wholesale accounts or 100 wholesale accounts and you go, here's our fall winter 24 capsule, right? And you meet with their buyers, they'll give you a pre-book or an order, and that helps fund production, right? So instead of you just creating product and figuring out a way, hopefully, to sell it, that is a way for you to go out and generate some cash or some capital, if you will, to support a buy that helps your margins on a greater scale. While also, supporting retailers, and it's a great brand awareness play. So not discounting wholesale or the wholesale approach in any way. It's a very good way for people to, or entrepreneurs in this space, to be able to manage their overhead, if you will, and also mitigate some of the risk around a given product collection.
How do you guys determine? I've never really understood this about the clothing manufacturing space. How do you determine how much you should make? Obviously, that's a little bit of it as you're expanding into it, but just from a direct consumer,
Great question.
in the beginning, how do you determine? Because there is a lot of risk there. I've always viewed that as you don't exactly know, because you obviously have loyal fans. I'm a huge fan of the brand. Our friend was just saying, so sometimes I walk in head to toe Willbo because I love it, and it's I want to support my boy.
Love
but
it. You're the man.
But like, how do you think about that? Because that's something I've really just never understood. And like, all right, based on last season, we got X amount of orders, and like it's like, how do you like kind of like
Great question.
pin that in of like,
Yeah.
this is how many polos we should make, so many hoodies. Like, I've just never really actually heard anyone talk about that either.
The blessings about direct consumer, and my dad has told me this as well, because, you know, growing up in the 80s and 90s for him, or at least starting businesses in the 80s or 90s, there was no direct line of communication with the end consumer, right? It was just a crapshoot, right? Oh, that's great. It's pushing through Hobie or through, Hanson's, whatever. That's awesome. Like, what does the customer think about it? There was no direct line of communication. Now there's real-time data and analytics that provides you with very important information to inform a buy, to inform decisions that are needed to be made for upcoming seasons. So, hey, great. Traction on these 3 styles were the best. Cool, right? That's just a pure analytic perspective. Great. These performed the best, right?
This Henley, this V-neck.
Yep.
Like, you guys want V-neck, this jacket.
Learnings, right?
Yeah.
So that's by way of just black and white data and analytics that we are given. Now, an important thing to note is one of the value components of our retail store early on was us being able to further that direct line of communication with our consumers to get real-time feedback that was more dynamic than just a number. Consumers come in, you come in and you go, hey, I love this polo, but it's a little tight in the armpit. Oh, really? Great. That's awesome. Thank you. Noted. 3 people come in. Hey, I love this polo, but the armpit's kind of uncomfortable. Great. Noted. Let's adjust. Let's realign and figure out a way to improve that given style. So it's a very important direct line of communication that's developed by way of our own retail location to help us inform upcoming buys in terms of what styles to make, how to iterate on a given product, and then also what sizes are important for us. To answer your question on that, and I think it's important that I've heard this and I couldn't agree more. It's very important for leaders in our age, if they don't know, to say, I don't fucking know, right?
Absolutely.
In this instance.
It's a sign of intelligence, in my opinion.
Totally.
Saying, I don't know.
Totally. In this instance, funny you asked that question, my brother Will, who's, co-founder and my right hand in this business, he's the Will, I'm the Bo. And that's how it works. He texted me last night. I'm barbecuing burgers at the store for a little event that we had. He's like, what do you think about this size run for our sweat shorts? It's like, it's normally a 12 size scale in terms of how you break up small through double extra large. And it's just a number on a text. 5, 12, 14, 8, 4. I'm like, I think there's too many larges. Add some to the small mix. It's a guess. Still a guess.
It's still a risk.
It's still a risk, right? You're still guessing every time. And I will tell you this, one of the most inspiring things that I learned early on in this space is I'm working alongside some incredible partners, both on the fabric supplying front, on the manufacturing front, on the dye house front, finishing and trims, the whole thing. It's an incredible working operation in LA. But one of the girls who really helped me out early on, she really helped a lot of early businesses. She did all of Juicy Couture. She was the first to really handle James Purse and really got James Purse on his way. I think that's why she liked me. The first 6 months I'm working with Lisa, she goes, you remind me of James Purse a lot. I like you.
I love that.
And she took me under her wing. But what she said to me is, I'd ask her a question on, hey, what do we do here? Or like, how's this going to execute? She'd look at me and she'd say, just as a reminder, I've been in this business for 30 years and I have no idea. I'm learning every day. It's a crapshoot, right? We're all learning every day. So that was a reminder to me that, take chances. Like you can't perfect this. And if you do, you're going to lose the magic of what you're trying to do all along. Perfection through imperfection, as well as decision-making. That's the two of the most important things that I would tell anyone trying to get into the apparel space is, if you can't make a decision, pick a different industry. That's the first thing. Second thing is learn how to really accept the imperfections in a garment or in creating anything. Because in that, there are surprises. And it might, and oftentimes will come out better than if you try to force it.
Totally. I was smiling earlier because when you're talking about getting direct feedback through the consumer.
Yeah.
I think I've told you like 10 times, Robbie, you got to make your hats deeper, man.
Yeah, you have a size 9 head.
I know. I have like the biggest head of all time.
You and Blake Hesser.
Yeah. No.
It's like
But
the founder
it's
of Lululemon coming out saying we don't make clothes for fat people. We don't make hats for size 9 heads.
Hey, but you've been generous. Some overruns where they've been too big. You're like, here you go.
Here you go.
Oh my God, this is perfect. This fits my head perfectly. I think that's really good. And yeah, like you said, it's interesting because there's always a risk there. And in any business, really, there's always risk. But yeah, that's one area for me that's just always stood out to me where I'm just like, it just seems so risky because like how do you actually know? And I think you kind of hit it on the head where you're like, we do the best we can with data. We talk to our customers, get real-time survey feedback. But then there's like, I'm sure you get big enough, you guys will probably start sending out surveys of what people liked, whatever, looking at reviews. But then it's like, at the end of the day, there's also just kind of like, we kind of just got to risk it for the biscuit a little bit. Like, this is what I feel. And
totally.
There's a little bit of like nuanced feel and
check this out.
See what happens.
I'll break it down in terms of us creating an end good. We'll take your polo, for example. Perfect example. And you'll hear why. We decide we want to make a polo, right? We want to really iterate on what a traditional polo is and how it wears. It's not going to be performance in the golf space. It's not going to be, too high end and kind of fashion oriented like traditional Lacoste or Ralph Lauren polos where it feels a little stuffy. So you go, great, we want to make a polo. Step one, we need to source the fabric. So we source this Japanese PK, which is a 95% cotton, 5% spandex. Ooh, this is butter. It feels so good on, right? It has kind of the lifestyle
Let me tell
feel.
you guys, it does.
It does.
It
looks
is
good
butter.
on you too.
It's lightweight. It's soft. I
right.
love it.
So we got to source the fabric first. Next is we have to develop patterns. Okay. Let's take the makings of this garment. What are the measurements? What does the spec sheet look like? How long is it from HPS to, chest and back and sleeve length and the whole thing, right? Let's get that right. Okay, great. Let's develop samples. Cool. We develop samples. Comes back. We do a fitting. The armhole is off, right? It's too tight in the arms, right? Great. Let's make a second sample. Make a second sample. Next, we have to essentially go through shrink tests on the fabric, right? Because when you're making a garment in the way that we do, there's a couple ways you can go about it. But when you're making a garment, essentially what you're doing for us is garment dyeing it. And so you're going to take what they call a shrinkage tube, which is a 20 by 20 piece of fabric, and you're going to put a big orange square around it and send it off to the dye house. Throw it in the laundry. Comes back, they look at how much it shrunk in the width and in the length. Great, we have 5% shrinkage in the width and 2% shrinkage in the length. They account for that in essentially grading, is what they call it, for the garment. So when they sew up a large, it accounts for 5% shrinkage in the width and 2% shrinkage in the length. So they sew it basically in all white, and then we take it to the dye house and garment dye it, right? With this fabric in particular, shrinkage was out of control, 20% in the width, right?
Whoa.
Like non-starter, but we had to do it. And we had to figure out a way that we could do it. We were working with some great Japanese manufacturers in LA, and we're like, we can figure it out. Moral of the story is, okay, great. Let's put in a production order, or let's put in a PO, right?
And you're putting this in, and you're probably thinking, this is a little risky, frankly. I mean, like, you're like, we got a lot of shrinkage going on in this thing, and like, I don't know how big the order is, but you're probably like, I don't know, 10, 20,000 for like a roll, I'm assuming, or something, whatever. And you're like, okay, if it shrinks too much, then we got like miniature polos and they're not going to sell and they're not going to fit right.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
And so as I told you earlier, we put together a size breakdown of what sizes we'll order. What does the large PO look like?
Yeah.
Right? So we put in that PO, we're going to do 3 colors. We're going to do white, we're going to do black, and we're going to do an Oxford blue. Great, we do it, run it. So manufacturer cuts, sews, and makes the garment, goes off to the dye house, comes back from the dye house. They recognize that the fabric was tough. It shrunk, right? And so we had accounted for this size run. I get to the manufacturer and I try on a size medium, which I fit for, and I go, this is size small. we got to drop everything a size. So if you're wearing an XL right now, that was initially a double extra large.
I am wearing an XL. Yeah.
There you go. It was a double extra large initially. We
Yeah.
had to drop the size because we couldn't sell as a large or an XL, right? It would have fit like a large. And you'd be like, no, the sizing's off. Luckily, we were able to skate through. But as soon as you do that, you're officially inaugurated in the Garmento business because that happens all the time. And so that was something that I realized. And I was like, you know what? Perfection through imperfection. Let's run it. The fabric's good, fit. It's not perfect, but people will love this. Let's go. Let's keep rolling. So that's, in many ways, start to finish, all of the different areas where you're taking a risk on a daily basis, right? But on a long-term basis, there's also a risk in hope we can sell this. The risk short-term is we're buying fabric, we're going through sampling and development, which is expensive. We're making garments on scale, right? So instead of making one, you're making 300 of them. Great, risk. And then ultimately, we bring in all of this inventory, which is cash sitting, in hopes to sell it. And if we don't sell it, we're hosed. Got to figure out a way to do it. So there are all these micro areas where you're taking a risk, right? While on the long term, trying to build to your vision. So that's on a micro scale with one product being a polo.
One product. But what I hear and what you've kind of said, not explicitly, is like the way we mitigate that is like hooking up with Jan, or sorry, her or whatever.
Lisa.
Lisa, hooking up with Lisa, who helped James Purse get off the ground. So she's like has all the experience. So putting good people in place, your good team members, bringing in some data as best you can, and then taking the steps necessary, like you said, in an initial putting together a sample and we to see how much shrinkage, and that's data in its own right of like okay, so you take steps, but ultimately that entire process, like you just outlined, from all the micro risks along the pre-production to production to then post-production, we actually have to sell this thing. It's risky, and I'm not saying you should obviously take the risk, and the risk is working out. The risk reward has been amazing. I think you guys are doing an amazing job, but it's like,
thank you.
It's just things you think about along the way, and that's that's what we're here trying to highlight, of like all the things you're thinking about, and you're like, okay, just because I think some people think taking a risk is like you can't do it, right? There's so many people who are so risk averse. Like you have to take a risk. You have to take a chance. Call it a chance. Call it a whatever. Go on a whim, a leap, whatever you want to do. But like you have to take that chance to then achieve what you want, right? You or a shot, right? That's I love this saying. It's like you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. But you also have to think about, okay, I can't like overextend myself,
and I'm not throwing up half court shots every time.
Exactly.
Right. We're gonna take some layups. We're gonna take some half court shots. We're gonna take some full courts at times.
Maybe. This might be a big, but sometimes the biggest risk has the biggest reward, right?
Yeah.
And it works out. So.
Totally.
Yeah.
If I think about it on a daily basis, right, our greatest resources, any business these days is leveraging three primary resources: time, people, money, right? There are risks associated with all of them. People, greatest resource, arguably. We're taking a risk on the employees we hire at our retail store to sell product and really connect with our community in an intentional way. We're taking a risk on the people that we've put in place to execute on manufacturing our goods. We took a risk on the people that are picket, right? Risk associated with people, risk associated with time. Time is finite, right? It's arguably, alongside people, the second greatest resource because it is finite. It's very important to manage your time, right? Okay, great. We have so many hours in a day. We have so many hours in a week, month, year. How do we most effectively manage our time, right? If we go too deep in this area, it's a risk because we're really sacrificing other areas of the business where it's needed, right? With money, right? Taking a risk all the time, right? Okay, we have this budget this quarter for a buy, right? Do we go heavy on polos? Do we go heavy on canvas jackets? Do we go heavy on hats? Where do we allocate that resource? And how do we effectively manage that budget while also managing the budget around web development, marketing, events and experiences, employees, right? Which are very expensive, right? Allocating budgets there. So we're really managing our financials, right? So the three greatest resources, obviously being time, people, and money. There are risks associated with all of them, but they're all important. and like you said, take a leap on someone that you believe in. And if they're not doing their job, help them, teach them.
Yeah, I was going to ask you to get maybe like if you're open to it, get a little specific on how Willbo does it from like a people or your philosophy of like with people a little bit. We've talked about manufacturing, that's like, hey, creating the actual good, and then like with people, and then even like events too. There's like there's obviously like a risk reward there.
Totally.
Probably a lot less than actually like buying thousands of dollars of rolls and fabric and creating, but like. What's Willbo's philosophy, I guess, in the garment space, right? Anyone who's listening, who, I'm sure they're interested. Of like, you've gotten a brand off the ground. You said to me once, your dad's like, hey, you guys have done in 3 years what most brands take 10 years to do to get like kind of a groundswell. So, what is kind of your philosophy with the different sections of business that you just talked about?
With people, with people, I guess my dad's always said people are your greatest resource, and I think most companies have it backwards, where they're so outward facing in terms of their obsession. We're obsessed on our customer, right? Okay, that's great, but if you're not obsessed on your core team and your internal team and your employees, your customer is going to suffer. And so my dad's approach, which I think is a great one, is make sure that your team's taken care of. Focus on your people first. Why? Because if you do that, not only are they going to have a vested interest and a deep connection with the vision and the brand, right? And essentially committed, but they'll take care of your customers. So that's the trickle-down effect. So for us and our internal team, we really make sure that they're aligned with the core values and ethos and vision of the business. They're taken care of financially, right, and emotionally in the areas that they need, and they are fundamentally whole in other ways, and then from there they'll take care of our community and our customers, right? So when it comes to people, that's the first thing internally for our team. In terms of externally and the people that we're working with or our partners, you sense it. You sense the people that you want to work with. I've had good people that I've worked with in LA, and I have people that have absolutely effed me over, right? Both have been important because you learn to have a nose when you're up there working with people. When it comes to managing money, if you will, it's tricky, right? Because money just goes like that. You're starting a business, boom, see ya. Wait, we have this budget this month? Great. Where to go? Well, here's how we broke it down. Here's why, right? So really being sound in terms of your spend in the different areas that the business needs is key. It's very straightforward to say, obviously, because it's your lifeline, right? Cash is king, right? Cash is the bloodline to any business. And so if you're mismanaging funds and going too deep in one area or taking too many risks in another area, it burns. It's gone.
Yeah.
See ya.
On the topic of financially, like obviously being an insurance guy, business insurance is what I do. Spice that in here, but no, it's a legit ask. Like all the things we've been talking about, right? You have to like take the risk. But one of the things I want to talk about, like financially, and I'm curious about, is like insurance wise, right? There are insurances that you've been talking about. Risk mitigation is in its own way an insurance, but like. What do you guys do from like, if like I'm assuming, hopefully you do, like,
yeah, absolutely.
Your insurance is like, talk to people about like, I think a lot of people, they don't even think about insurance. One of the misconceptions I've been hearing a lot is like, oh dude, I'm just a small business. Like I don't need insurance. And one of the things I tell people is like, if you're making revenue,
you need it.
You need it. If you have employees, if you have one employee in the state of California, it's illegal not to have workers' compensation insurance. Yeah, exactly. You got to have workers' comp, right? So what do you guys, first of all, what do you have? Like from a policy perspective that but then also like, we can kind of talk about the actual insurance policies, but then like maybe some other insurances that you're just like, around
totally.
Like the different aspects of the business. Like, yeah, you can call that risk mitigation, but like also like, hey, we've like put a operational insurance policy, we call that risk management policy, like in place around certain things. What are things that like come to mind with that?
You hit on the first one, obviously. If you have one employee in California, you need workers' comp. Right?
Sure.
That's just straightforward. For us being in the apparel space and also, owning and operating a building down in Laguna, the three off the top of my head that I do know are obviously workers' comp and then general liability insurance being the second, and then the third is commercial property insurance, I believe.
Yeah.
Is the third.
Property insurance. Yeah.
Right? Because if we have a store down in Laguna, it's a commercial property. We need to have insurance that supports that. I was with a buddy who owns a coffee shop right in Costa Mesa the other day, and also Long Beach. It's called Milligram. Common Room is the parent company, but Ed is the absolute man. And we're getting ready for an event in March, and the insurance question came up. And he's this Aussie, and he's hilarious. He's like, yeah, fuck, mate. You have one of those Porsche events, and you do your thing, and some lady sticks her leg out and gets her leg run over. That's on you.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy.
It is.
So it's like one of those things where it's like, damn, you never think about that because it's all rainbows and butterflies when you're barbecuing in the back and you have 50 Porsches and 500 people at this event and people are soaking it up until that lady gets her leg run over and sues you.
Yeah, you're liable.
Well, you're liable. It's on your property.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that in place, you're host. See ya.
Totally.
Bye-bye, Willbo. Bye-bye, Birdie.
Bye-bye.
So those are the three off the top of my head. General liability insurance, workers' comp, and then commercial property insurance.
Yep.
Aside from that, I think it's an umbrella, right? I don't know the exact name of, call it the umbrella package or policy. And then we work with a company called Hartford. We should be with you. We can talk about that too.
Yeah, we should talk about it. Yeah. I mean, but the other things, and maybe like a little bit of a teach lesson here too, is like, for the other things that you probably want to think about is you guys are transporting garments, right?
Yes.
And you might have thousands of dollars worth of garments. There's an insurance policy called inland marine insurance, which a lot of people think, oh, I have commercial property insurance. Like all my stuff is covered. It's like, no, well, your stuff at a designated location, but inland marine is like if it's in my car and then someone steals like $2,000 worth of garments out of my car, you need to have what's called inland marine insurance. Marine insurance comes from marine. They used to have transporting things over the marine, over water, right? So marine, and then they call it inland marine, which means like on land in transportation, basically. So that's probably one you want to think about.
Is that the same one that covers production equipment in a car?
Exactly.
So how many times do we hear of people getting their car broken into in San Fran or LA and they have, cameras and podcast equipment and it gets smoked? So that's inland marine insurance.
Inland marine. Yeah. Super cheap. And you guys probably want to think about that.
Yep.
You probably also want to think the commercial property off premise, because you have to have you have to designate a specific location. So you guys have, your location in Laguna, and anything is designated the limits that you have there. But then off premise, you have, you tell me how much is like a typical roll of fabric?
Just depends, right? So if you take that PK fabric, that PK polo fabric, it's about $4.75 a yard.
Sure.
Right. And certain fabric suppliers have MOQs, right? We work with some that have very lenient MOQs, but take, for example, yesterday we're looking at French terry for some styles that we're getting ready for fall. The yard cost is about $6.25, and you're buying 2,000 yards of fabric.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's... And you haven't even sewn a garment.
Tens of thousands of dollars, right?
Totally.
So once you buy that, right? Like, or once it's like in manufacturing, like, and let's say that like, again, another risk that people run is like, let's say that building goes up in smoke for some reason.
Oh yeah.
Boom. You got like, there's a lot of things going on in there, but like, if they don't have the proper insurances, you guys probably want to have what's called property off premise, where you're like, dude, we got $50,000 worth of garments at this place. We don't want to make sure if we don't have that, we just paid $50,000 and it goes completely. Willbo's done.
So we have raw goods at the factory level.
Yeah, you got raw goods exactly that you own, right?
Yes.
It's your goods.
They're just warehousing it. So if their building goes up in smoke, which happens all the time because you have all sorts of shit going on in LA, especially where we are, El Monte, Vernon, downtown. A lot of weird stuff going on.
Totally, man.
It's a very probable thing to think about. Is
got someone who vandalizes a building, throws a flaming bottle into the building, and catches a
muzzle
garment. Who knows, right? Like I did in San Francisco. You got. I remember seeing this building just literally gas leak and just like imploded.
No
it was
way.
It just happens. Things happen, right?
And so that one's called off premise.
It's in your commercial property, but it's property. It's another schedule. That's another like line item that says like property off premise, and you want to make sure that
off premise
that limit is correct. Like you could schedule your warehouse on there. That's another like fix if you have just one warehouse or manufacturing area. Sorry. But most people, what they do is just property off premise if it's not their location.
Cool.
Um,
So we have inland marine insurance.
yeah.
We have property off premise, two
Yeah.
being important, right? On top of GLI, commercial property insurance, and then workers' comp. So we have about 5 that are very key for our business.
Yeah. The other one that's really key is employment practices liability. What you got? How many employees do you have now?
8.
You got 8 employees. What if someone is harassing someone? And it's most times employee to employee. And they say, well, Willbo, this is your responsibility because I'm working for you at the store and I'm getting harassed. I mean, what if you have a good looking woman and the guy, is like kind of like
Harassing her.
You're like, you're like, oh crap. And then they sue you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They're going to sue him. She's probably going to sue. She quits and then sues him. And then she's going to sue you because she felt like I was being harassed. It's your responsibility as an employer to provide a good workspace where I feel safe.
Right.
Things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, just some food for thought. Sorry to turn this into a teaching moment,
This is great. I love it.
It's
That's why
food
we're here.
It's food for thought. It's risks that you run as in EPLI. It's employment practices liability. That's what covers like harassment, sexual harassment. It's the #1 lawsuit in California.
Is it really?
The #1.
Wow. And so take a company like Amazon, right? They probably get 1 a day.
Oh yeah,
I guarantee it. Or,
100%.
Take a company like Apple, whatever. So if they have EPLI, I think I got it right.
Yep.
EPLI, that covers the liability on behalf of a company being sued by a former employee
or a current employee.
current employee
For harassment, sexual harassment, discrimination.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. Also, a lot of policies will cover third-party harassment. So, So if customer comes in and they feel like I'm being harassed by your employee, for some reason, and then you guys, then they sue you because they're going to sue the business.
Yep.
Your employees. And so that will pick up coverage. At the end of the day, it's all money, right? What we sell insurance is like money to help you mitigate like a loss or a lawsuit. Really, a lot of people, when I say that, they're like, oh yeah, I just made a video the other day that the most lawsuits in the United States are California.
EPLI.
Most of those are against businesses. It's not an if, it's just a when you're going to get sued as a business in California. So things to think about, on your behalf of like, man, you want to grow this business. If we had our manufacturing building goes up in smoke, we have $50,000 worth of goods. What would that do to your business?
Yep.
Could you survive? I don't know. It's just things to think about,
Yep. Property off premise.
Property off premise is a big one.
Cool.
For you guys, for
Awesome.
sure.
Yeah,
But,
I think that makes a ton of sense.
yeah.
I have a question for you. We talked about this, not long ago, but in terms of your space, working and operating a business in California, what are the pros from an insurance perspective, and what are the cons to a degree comparatively to other states?
Yeah, I mean, in the insurance space, I think one of the big pros is there is ample opportunity here. I think California is the 5th largest economy in the world. I mean, alone, right?
Wow.
Just California. It's innovative in the sense that I get to work with cool businesses that are pushing innovation. We have one company in our portfolio that we work with. It's they're a robotics company, and they're basically like a robotics warehouse company. So it's cool in that regard. The people I work with are pretty high level, like yourself. They're like smart, entrepreneurial. California is the land of entrepreneurs, right? It really is. So it's really fun to work with dynamic people. To be totally honest, there's a lot more going on from an insurance perspective, like we just talked about, a lot of more lawsuits, things. So it's more prevalent. So from an insurance perspective, it's just more necessary, I think. So it's for us, we are really helping fill something that it's not just an if, it's just a when, it's really helping this, hey, get business owners get protected, because our ethos is I want my mission is to help you take more risks. And you do that by mitigating risks through these insurance policies.
Being informed on which ones to have.
You're transferring risk is what you really are. Number one, being informed, and then deciding to, hey, I'm going to pay some money to transfer that risk if something happens to the insurance company. And then that allows me to sleep well at night, but also just to be like forward facing and not have to worry if something happens, my business goes up in smoke and I'm just, my business is destroyed, So it's like, that's my goal. It's like to help entrepreneurs succeed. And we're in the land of entrepreneurs. So it's really fun. From the downside of working in California, I would say the hoops you have to jump through as a business have just become greater and greater and greater.
Yeah,
California legislatively has been, they just keep putting more roadblocks and making it harder and harder and harder for companies to operate. I talk to business owners all the time. They say, I could probably scale my business 5x, but I'm not going to do it because my headaches just get bigger. My profit margin doesn't get change. So why would I do that?
Interesting.
And so there's just that aspect where it's like, I feel for, and myself growing, having my own brokerage and growing my business, thinking about that, it's like, man, where's that kind of sweet spot? Right. And you'll find out that eventually, and I know you guys are going to do it when you grow to like 50 plus employees, as soon as you hit the 50 employee mark, then the hoops it's like greater. You kind of can like operate within, it's a kind of small business, and then you hit 50 employees and you're just like, okay, I just got 10 hoops put in front of me that I have to hit as a business.
Yeah.
And that's why I think you see businesses, like, in a lack of a better term, go more corporate after that, like 50 employees, because you kind of have to. You're like forced to in the state of California. You have to offer benefits. You have to have certain regulations met. You have to have sexual harassment training has to be for every employee. All these things, right? That's just like, oh, here's like administratively that I just like, wow, I have like 50 more things, and like, so you're maybe as a founder, you shift from like this vision, and you always have the vision, to like, oh man, my job, like I'm still doing all the things I love, but my job just like got so much more like paperwork focused and like administratively. So it's things that I think about for my own business, but also for my business owners. And we try to help them as much as we can. Hey, what's up, guys? Just wanted to take this quick break to remind you that if you're liking this content, please make sure to hit that subscribe button above or below this video. I'm looking forward to bringing you more content like this in the future. I'm hoping to drop a couple podcasts a month. So let me know what you think. But for now, let's get back into the show. We had a quick pause and now we're back.
Like to thank our sponsors.
Yeah, like to thank our sponsors, Willbo. So, we were just talking about the insurances and things that, it's great that that's what you have, and, it's just more things that, to think about as you continue to grow as an employer. You're now an employer,
Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting though to hear you talk about it, because there are so many things that you are unaware of in terms of what you need, regardless of if you're fundamentally sound. You have a very good sense of the business that you're in and how to manage and operate it. But there are surprises, right? And I think the interesting thing is that you said that in California alone, the number one, essentially, insurance policy that's leveraged, or the number one lawsuit, is in the EPLI space, right? And so we're living in a very bizarre time for a number of reasons, but it's a very litigious period in which we're in. So the lawsuits that come about are left and right. They're very, very prominent and prevalent, as you said, these days. So to be covered on top of the business itself from an employee standpoint with sexual harassment and all of that stuff is very key. And I think there's growing pains in any business. There's also awkward phases, right? When you have 10 employees versus when you have 30 employees, kind of doesn't hit that hoop until about 100, and then things start to work out. But I think it's really key to be very buttoned up and fundamentally sound in terms of what insurances you have and are in place to mitigate the risks that, are available, or I guess, there.
Yeah, that they happen. And insurance, the way I view it, it's not just the insurance policy is the transfer of risk to, an insurance company. And you also want to have those, but you also there's the risk reward to that too. And that's what I go through with all my clients. We're talking about what's the risk that you run, and are you comfortable running that risk without insurance, right? Yeah. There's some things you're just like, no, I'm not comfortable. And But everybody's different. Everybody
Yeah.
has a different mentality. There's some people I know just like, I don't care. I'm just running without insurance. It's like, you're crazy, but
I like you, man, but
I like you, man, but you're crazy.
should be your motto.
You're crazy, man. I like you. No, but like it's and I've met a few people like that, and they're just like, I don't care. Just give me the minimum I need to meet this contract or whatever it is. And I'm like, hey, there are things we should talk about as
Wow.
far as like you have exposure,
Mhm.
potentially exposure you don't even know about, like you talked
Right.
about. And that's a lot of my job is to educate business owners. Hey, there's things you don't even know about.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I'm trying to help you with here.
Mhm.
I'm not, I'm not perfect, but I'm just trying to get people like,
Yeah.
whoa, I didn't know that, So, but there's also the risk insurances from like operationally, and things that you do, you call that risk management or risk mitigation,
Yep.
but all the operationally, and we touched on some of those of like putting good people in place, training, like you talked about with your employees, make sure they hit the ethos of your company. Know the values. Hiring is actually one that like it's a big part of that. Like hiring the right people.
Yeah.
And making sure you have a good process there. That's huge.
I think it's one of the greatest areas of difficulty for a company that's growing and scaling is, they bring on certain hires too quickly, and it becomes a very, very big challenge. My dad always said, hire slowly, fire quickly. Even these days, though, in terms of insurance, right? Like you can't just fire someone under no pretense or under no basis. And so there needs to be essentially schedules and there needs to be checkups in place with employees so that if that time comes where you need to let go an employee, you've actually gone through the right steps.
And you've documented. I think someone in your perspective and people, if they're starting a business in general, or like if clothing doesn't matter, document, right? That's
totally. If it's not in
huge.
writing, if you don't have those documents and that kind of stuff in place, you just can't. So hire slowly, fire quickly in terms of people, managing people. And there's a difference between obviously managing and leading, right? People, both are very important, right? You need to know when to lead and inspire, and you also need to know when to manage, right? Management is obviously less fun, it's less sexy, but it is key. And just being a generally speaking, a good operator in terms of that internal team, but then also leading through inspiration and really like the core values is kind of a way that I break it up.
Absolutely.
But,
yeah. And the last point on that I just wanted to bring up, it's like, if you're not documenting, then if you let someone go, like the example you just said, you got to like go through the process, make sure there's like things are documented. Then people are suing you for like wrongful termination.
Nailed it.
You sue me for nothing. And that is covered under the EPLI.
Let's go.
Yeah, there you go. Right.
There you go.
Yeah. And in another last point is like, all these policies aren't super expensive, so it's like people just like,
right.
Get with someone who knows what they're doing on the commercial insurance space and like just say, hey, what? And there's nothing stopping you from getting a quote and being like, hey,
Right.
or maybe we can't afford that now, but we want to get that. It's like, just look at your options like anything, right? Like look at your options and is there a risk reward of like, maybe it's too expensive for us, but I want you to know it's out there, But let's talk about the future, right? And in that, let's talk about Willbo, where you guys are going, and what you're doing, or what's your thinking around how am I safeguarding? Because you've built something that I think you said earlier, but I agree. It's like you built something kind of magical. I really, really do think that Willbo has legs to go the distance and be a James Purse. And what I've told you and anyone who's listening, it's Willbo has like the encapsulated what it means to be a Californian. And myself, I'm a 4th generation Californian. That's why I rock Willbo all the time. And that's not sponsored. That's just supporting my friend, but also me connecting with the ethos of the brand. And what's your thinking around that? Because like that is the magic you've created. And so how do you safeguard that from the ethos of the business, from like a ethos perspective, but then the actual physical operational business? We talked a little bit about insurance, obviously. And obviously leaning on your dad a bit from experience. And he has the experience of growing, Dan McInerny, but for those listening, as he started Olokai, the shoe company, and he's one of the first employees at Quicksilver. So that's awesome. He has great experience. So what are lessons that you're learning every day and things you're thinking about moving into the future? on, tell us where you're going, but then how are you thinking about that? Is like, what are the next steps, and to make sure that we protect the ethos and then the people and all that stuff.
Yeah, great question. We have lofty goals to build a non-traditional business in many ways that really leverages areas of a number of things, whether it's in apparel and product, whether it's from kind of a membership model, social club, kind of hospitality space around storytelling and the arts and entertainment. So, the long-term vision is quite lofty in the sense that it doesn't really exist today. There are elements out there that absolutely exist, but we're kind of pulling pieces from a lot of things, whether it be in a traditional apparel space, whether it's in a membership space like a Soho House or an Olympic club, and then on the retail front and being a retailer, right? There are all these different things that we're pulling from, but long-term speaking, we want to continue to build beautiful product that captures the spirit of the West and our shared lifestyle here, and really use that product as the conduit to, as I said, the deeper experience being built out on the back end, really community-centric in the hospitality space. So we have a membership model down the road that supports this experience on a deeper level. We can offer this to, call it a subset of our community that's looking for a deeper level of engagement in the Willbo brand and experience. So in order for us to realize this, that's just very short and high level, but in order for us to realize this, slow growth is key for us, and really kind of looking at the trajectory or angle of that hockey stick so that we don't overtax our team internally, one, and two, we don't overwhelm our consumer externally, right? If we try to become too many things to too many people at once, people are like, dude, what? Like, you lost me, right? There was something special.
I lost the ethos. Yeah,
you lost that ethos. So for us, recognizing that we have very exciting goals and a very exciting vision and roadmap in place, but for us to get there, it requires immense patience, right? And it also requires immense discipline, right? If we're mismanaging cash, right, or money on a quarterly or call it annual basis, we'll never realize those long-term goals, right? And so for us, it's a reminder to keep things simple, really operate in a healthy way and to our pace, and assure that we have the building blocks and foundation internally in place, from operations to systems and processes and formulas, and the style and I guess the repetitive way or the formulaic way in which we can go about manufacturing goods, really getting those key bricks and foundational pillars in place so that it becomes clockwork, right? And it's a living, breathing organism, right? You have the balance between art and science. We talk about this all the time. You have the balance between brand and business.
What do you say? Steak and sizzle?
Steak and sizzle. You nailed it.
Yeah.
So that's very key as well, because if you're not looking at that on a regular basis, then you're gonna lose either the business side of it, and you're gonna mismanage your resources. But on the brand side of it, you're also going to lose the ethos and the values and the magic, like we talked about. That's so important, and arguably speaking, why people are there to work in the first place.
Yeah.
Or why people are there to join you at an event that you have on a Thursday night.
Or buy your products.
Or buy your products.
How they feel connected. What do you feel? Are you open to sharing like getting into the little specifics of what you envision that to be? Like you talked about like the more connected experiences, maybe something similar to like, a Soho House-ish type, we've talked about it, I know, but for people listening, it's like a clubhouse type feel, which you guys have nailed in Laguna. But like maybe get a little more specific of like, what do you envision with that?
Totally. So in short, this membership model would provide exclusive access to the best of life in the West, right? And that can be in form of physical spaces and places. Wait, Willbo has a mountain, clubhouse in Truckee. That's dope. And they have 5 boutique hotel, rooms. And there's a cafe, and there's, a really cool restaurant in here. They also have a retail space where I can buy exclusive Willbo products, as well as, merchandise goods from aligned brands and businesses that are only available in this place. Souvenir, right?
Totally. The Jarnu.
Nailed it, right? So exclusive access in that regard to physical places and spaces in the unique geographical regions in the West that provides you with a home away from home for you, your family, and your friends.
What spaces?
That's the first thing.
I love that. What spaces are you thinking about? You talked about Truckee, Tahoe.
We distill it down to the 4 primary, but I guess 5th in this regard, geographical regions. So call it the coast, call it the valleys, the mountains, and the deserts. The 5th being the cities, right?
Sure.
Kind of like planet Earth.
Yeah.
And even
a
here,
city is its own beast.
It is.
It's
right?
its own environment.
Yeah. So we distill it down in that way where we go, what are the key neighborhoods and communities that would really resonate with what we're doing? Actually, a good way to bring this up. An approach that we had initially was, let's identify 15 to 20 key doors or wholesale accounts that we can provide product to and start to gauge in terms of feedback where it's resonating. That was an approach, right? But managing wholesales, it's a challenge. It's a big lift. The alternative is, let's do some key pop-ups over the course of the next 6 months to a year. Santa Barbara, Los Angeles, North County, San Diego, San Francisco, New York is a big one for us. People, it's our second biggest state is New York.
Wow.
Wait, we have great traction in New York. Let's go pop up for a month and see how this goes. So that's a way that we're going to do some learnings on the short end to then realize long term, okay, great, what does this more built out strategy look like? That's the first thing. And then also, where does our community want to go? So if we have a space like Laguna that serves our direct community, right, because it's accessible,
yep.
What are those homes away from home where our community would like to visit? Wait, Willbo has a desert clubhouse and I can go out and I have, they have a reciprocal program with these golf courses and these tennis clubs and these restaurants. Wait, this is so cool. So circling back on really what this longer term membership model looks like, treating product as the conduit to that, right, on the back end, hence not wanting to overwhelm people. I don't really tell many people this, so this is exclusive, I guess. But again, access to the best of life in the West by way of spaces and places, the network and community, which is very, very core to us. It's really arguably the foundation of what the business is built on. Early on, what is Willbo? I don't quite yet know, but it's dope. Go to one of their events, you're going to meet friends, right?
They got sick apparel, but it's more than just apparel.
Yes.
We'll see. Yeah, you'll see.
Totally. And then, you have events and experiences at these physical locations, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's entertainment and education or, firsthand. Wait, that's so cool. I can take a ceramics class at their barn in the valley. That sounds awesome. We can take a cooking class after we catch, fish in the Truckee, in their mountain clubhouse. Wait, that's so cool. So that's another area. Let's see, products as well, right? Like I said, exclusive products, and then a reciprocal program. So by way of creating almost a digital platform that supports this physical experience, how cool would it be if you go to New York with your fam and you pop open this platform that's private, but supports the Willbo lifestyle and ethos, and you go, we're going to New York end of February. I wonder what Willbo members will be in the local neighborhood. And I wonder what reciprocal programs Willbo offers in New York. Wait, that's awesome. We can get discounted tickets to the US Open. We can go to these restaurants and have reservations queued up for us. We can go to these plays. We can go shop at these stores. The reciprocal program is a key one for us. You see it often in traditional membership models,
Yeah.
right? If you're a member of the Outrigger Canoe Club in Hawaii, they have a dope reciprocal program, which I'm speaking to. So that's
And then you want to buy the Outrigger canoe
yes,
gear.
that's what's so
Boom,
interesting.
that for that particular region, you're like,
Totally.
and then people were like, I'm in that club too. I went to the Outrigger,
Yep,
and they see you and like, I'm in the club.
nailed it.
Awesome.
What happened yesterday when I saw you at KIT, right? I saw your buddy who's
Yeah.
from San Francisco, and he goes, hey, by the way, he's English, right?
Yeah.
My accent's ass, but
Royal Ed is.
by the way, I met your cousin in San Francisco, and the reason we met is because he was wearing a Willbo hat, and I was also wearing a Willbo hat. I was like, love it, right?
Love it, dude. Yeah, you're in the club.
So-
in the club.
So that is the magic, I think, that programming's not the right word. There's a negative connotation around programming, but instilling in our community to think about, because there's a different response and different feeling that people have when they see someone wearing that on their chest, because it feels like a club. If someone's wearing Carhartt, or if someone's wearing, pick your brand, Travis Matthew, you're not going to as easily go up and be like, yo, Travis Matthew, got you.
Yeah.
It's been an anomaly in this sense. And my dad said it as well. Because it feels so personal and intimate for our community, if there's a Willbo hat in the wild in the airport, right, when you don't want to talk to anyone and put your headphones in and maybe you're hungover coming back from Cabo, you're going to go up and look at that guy and be like, Willbo hat. Like, do you know Robbie? Do you know Will? No, I don't, but just resonate with the brand. Dope. Me too. What's your name? Where are you from? Immediate connection, right? I love the idea of treating our product as we intended, as a means for fostering meaningful connection. It's a touch point, right? If you're wearing that hat or shirt and I'm also wearing one, or you see it and I'm not wearing one, there's a warmth to you because I know you're vetted. I can walk up to you and I know that you're going to be a friend, right? It's trusted. So that's how we've treated product. Yes, do we want to build incredible product that you're going to have for 50 years and hand down to Ford and your family? Absolutely. Is our intention around product to make the most beautiful, high-end fashion, jaw-dropping goods? No. It's the intention behind it is, let's provide product to our consumers that supports their lifestyle and pursuits, makes them look good, feel good, play good, but more importantly, give them the emotional connection to not only the brand, but the people that also resonate with the brand, because that's where it all happens.
Absolutely. I love that.
Long-winded, but
No, I love it. And one of the things, kind of like winding down here, but like one of the things I think about is, how do you envision, or again, kind of this piece around like, how do you safeguard the ethos, and like, if you do have a place in the desert, you have a place in Tahoe, and like, you have around these places in the West, you have these clubhouses, and like, obviously right now you're curating the space heavily, like yourself, because you're, the founder of the brand. How do you think about like making sure to safeguard that ethos, and like, because you can't be in all places at once, right? So what are the things that you think about of like, or what are the things you're pre-thinking about of like, okay, to get there, we need to do X, and like making sure, I don't know, I'm just like curious, because it's an amazing goal, but like you said, it's a slow. You want to make sure you hit on, so that in that sense, I hear okay, we're kind of mitigating our risk a little bit. Like, we're not like just like the pop up in Laguna, where you're like, let's go pop up. I actually think you have a great formula. Let's go pop up somewhere. Yeah. But then when that that vision actually comes to life, are there any things that you think about of like, oh man, we gotta make sure to we have like X, Y, and Z in place, and like, and then also like, it has to be
We're now going into year 3 of our business, and I told Will yesterday, I feel like we're starting from scratch again in the best way possible, right? Because it's almost 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Make sure you're dialed. 2 step forward, 1 step back. Make sure you're dialed, right? From our learnings, from our experience, from the unknown and unexpected, here's what we can take a step back on and trench the business even further in. So the classic example for us right now is we're going into year 3. For the last 8 months to a year, Will's been shadowing me around product and manufacturing in LA. Steep learning curve. There's a lot of moving parts. It's hectic, right? I was able to just kind of dive in head first and luckily enough, get punched so many times in the head, but still be okay to keep cruising. That's an investment, right? Because teaching Will to not only understand the verbiage and language, but have the right relationships and connections, and then skill set to be able to execute on what we need to be done, that's trenching the business. Equally as so, trenching the business around product and manufacturing is, okay, we've worked with a series of vendors and manufacturers and partners, and they can do all of it, right? But let's identify the full package vendors and manufacturers and partners that are most skilled in these categories. Great, we have a knit manufacturer that's the best in LA. Let's shift our efforts there and go back to this manufacturer and have them handle it. Might be a little more expensive, it's full package, but you know what it prevents me from doing? Driving up to LA and loading, 15 bolts of fabric in my car, loading it to the dye, or carrying it to the dye house, the whole thing. So almost, like I said, 2 step forward, 1 step back, and trenching the business in all aspects of how it operates. back end. We've implemented CRM platforms and all these different, platforms that help the business operate more effectively, so that we don't have to go back 6 months down the road and for bookkeeping, track down all of our invoices and track down, accounting and all that shit. So that's really where we are in terms of really solidifying the key pillars of the business, from product and manufacturing to our retail operation, which includes events and experiences, which includes employees, educating, and really working with employees so that they are skilled. Because back to your greatest resources, right? With Will, even the most important investment I can make is in the people, because if they're trusted and skilled in their space and know how to handle good times and bad, right? When challenges arise, they know how to really carry themselves. Then you don't have to be everywhere all at once.
Yeah, that investment is an insurance in its own right.
Yeah,
you're creating your moat around your business by investing in your people.
Yep.
And that's a big theme, that a lot of businesses talk about. And like
Totally.
you said, but people are your number one asset,
Totally.
So that insurance is training them right and doing all the right things to make sure that they carry on the ethos. And I know you guys are very meticulous about that.
Yeah.
And so, it's
all a work in progress, though. Learning every day and just trying to get better. If no losses, only lessons, like you said.
You only, you win, you learn. That's all. That's
you
all
win,
it
you
is.
Learn. Yeah.
So.
You lose, you learn.
Well, dude, this has been an amazing conversation. I've learned a lot. I love hearing your story, start to finish. I think people will get a lot of, a good, so many nuggets to take from your experience.
Thanks, Benny.
Where can people find you, and where can people find Willbo?
Awesome. Yeah, our website is willbousa.com. You can follow us on Instagram at @Willbo. And if you're in the Orange County area ever, our little retail store is right in North Laguna at 353 North Coast Highway. Spence maybe will lead you there.
Yeah, you might see me there with a beer in hand at a Porsche event or
Exactly.
something, getting a haircut. And
right. Coffee in the morning.
Do a lot of amazing events. So I'm excited to see you guys grow, and I'm excited to have you on again in the future and just kind of see where you guys are as you continue to grow throughout this journey. It's gonna be great.
We'll follow up in a year and we'll have more exciting stories.
Love it.
Thanks for having me on.
I love you, brother.
Love you, bro. You're the best. Appreciate you.
Yeah. Hey guys, thank you so much for listening and watching this podcast. If you want to hear more podcasts like this, make sure to subscribe to my channel above or below this video. You can also watch the next podcast right here on the screen. There should be a link right here on the screen to the next podcast. Look forward to seeing you guys there. Let's get into it.